Scare Zones are here. Academy of Villains is coming back. We'll talk about it right after this. Well, hello everybody out there in Atlanta. This is ChrisMageLegs.com with another exciting episode of My Talking Head. We got 2 videos in 1 week. It is that time. There's a lot of stuff that's going to be coming fast and furious over the course of the next couple weeks. We are officially less than a month away from the start of the event. So we of course had Saw announced on Monday, and now today Universal Orlando and Halloween Horror Nights have announced all of the Scare Zones, all the Scare Zone goodnesses to talk about. Goodnesses, is that even a word? All the Scare Zones to talk about, as well as the return of Academy of Villains. We're going to start with that, the return of Academy of Villains. We all know the other news that dropped this week. I did not do a video on it. The final performance of Bill and Ted's Excellent Halloween Adventure will take place this year. You can read all my thoughts on that on the blog. I'm not going to go into that here. I might go into a little bit more detail when I do my next chatcast, but nevertheless, this is the last year for Bill and Ted's Excellent Halloween Adventure. Last year, we of course had Academy of Villains show up for the first time. There was a lot of rumors and speculation going on last year about this other show. There was some speculation about the Jabberwockies, this and that, blah, blah, blah. It's a dance troupe, this and that, blah, blah, blah. Academy of Villains is, yes, first and foremost, a dance troupe, but it's also very much performance art. I happen to really dig Academy of Villains last year, and I know that a lot of other people did. The show was fresh, it was unique, it offered something a little bit different than what we're kind of used to at Halloween Horror Nights, but still encompassing that same sort of feel, you know, music, dance, some horror elements to it as well. It was a big hit last year. A lot of people did enjoy Academy of Villains, so it was kind of a no-brainer that they would, in fact, bring it back this year. They sort of kind of spilled the beans a little bit on their social medias a couple months ago, sort of hinting that they were in Orlando rehearsing with the Universal Orlando team. So I don't know if this really came as a surprise to anybody that it's coming back. They are doing something different though. The show this year will be called Academy of Villains Afterlife. Now the event has not had a very good history with titles that are called Afterlife, but I digress. The sounds of the show, what the show kind of sounds like is interesting. It's this sort of interpretation dance thing about what happens after we die, what happens in the great beyond when we finally lose, move on from this life of ours. I am excited about this coming back. Like I said, I really enjoyed the show last year. I thought it was quite different, quite unique. So I'm excited about this coming back. I have no qualms about it coming back. I like the fact that they're changing up the show, which is something that I think maybe some people in their minds, when they sort of talked about bringing Academy of Villains back, it's like, oh, it's going to be the same thing. Sure, they still have they're still going to do their dance thing and their dance routines, but it's going to be something different. That's what I like about this group. When they were announced last year, I had no idea who these people were. I had no clue who Academy of Villains were. I knew who the Jabberwockies were, because that was like the rumored thing last year. Of course, not the case. But I did look up a lot of their stuff on YouTube, and if you have not or are not that familiar with Academy of Villains, I highly suggest looking up their stuff on YouTube. That's where I first saw last year when they did the Bohemian Rhapsody skit that they did last year during the show. They had stuff, had performances of that on their YouTube page. So who knows? Maybe they've already they have stuff in their arsenal that's sort of based around this theme of this year, this whole Afterlife theme that they're going to bring to the event this year. Who knows? But nevertheless, if you haven't seen Academy of Villains, I highly recommend looking up their stuff on YouTube. At this point, I think everyone's probably aware of or familiar with Academy of Villains. But if you are not, I highly recommend going onto their YouTube page or find stuff on YouTube that pertains to the group because their stuff is quite interesting. I was more taken aback last year by the sheer performance art of what Academy of Villains is and their dedication to their shows. A good example last year was we had good old Hurricane Matthew sort of brushed Florida last year, and a lot of stuff had to be taken down because of the hurricane, winds and stuff. Wind's bad, hurricane's bad. But when the event started up again, because it did close down for 2 days, 2 nights, when the event started up again, the stage wasn't yet constructed, so they sort of performed their show in a sort of pseudo style out on the concrete to the left of, in between La Bamba and the horror makeup show. So it just goes to show you the talent that these guys have, the dedication these guys have. They really seem like they enjoyed being at the event last year. They sort of hinted at a comeback this year in their final show last year. So again, I'm not surprised that they are coming back. I don't think anybody should be surprised that Academy of Villains is coming back, especially with sort of now we know that the closure, this is the last year for Bill and Ted. Who knows where the show elements of Horror Nights are going to go in the future. But I have a feeling that Academy of Villains is part of those future plans. So I don't think they're going to go anywhere anytime soon. And as long as they can keep the show fresh, as long as every year they can keep different themes, different storylines going, I think it's a good addition to the event, at least for the next couple years. As long as they can keep it fresh, keep reinventing, keep doing different things, I think people will have a good time watching this show in the future as Bill and Ted sort of ride that phone booth off into the sunset. But nevertheless, Academy of Villains is back. So let's get to the meat, the heart of the order here. We had all of the scare zones revealed this morning via Universal and Halloween Horror Nights. When I first heard about all these scare zones a couple months ago, I was sort of mixed on a lot of this stuff. I was not a big fan of the scare zones last year. There were problems. There were definitely problems with scare zones last year. You had one or two shining beacons of hope in the scare zones last year, but that's kind of it. There was a lot of hype last year for some of these scare zones, such as Dead Man's Wharf, or even Survive or Die. The concepts were much greater than the execution of the scare zones. Fisherman's Wharf, Dead Man's Wharf, which is in Fisherman's Wharf, was not the greatest of things. The concept, the high concept was there, but it just wasn't executed well. The costumes were fine, the boat was cool, but the location and the bottleneck that was there last year and a bunch of other things just did not really work for that scare zone. And this year kind of has the same sort of vibe for me. There's a couple of scare zones that have a lot of these high concept is a little bit too big of a word, but in a way, yes, it's a high concept scare zones, and I'm not quite sure how they're going to be able to pull some of this stuff off. But nevertheless, I'm going to go ahead and list some of these, not necessarily in an order here. It may be from the bottom of the list to the top of the list, but nevertheless, I digress. So we're going to start with The Purge. The Purge is coming back. Now, Purge may or may not have been supposed to be here last year, and some incidences around the Orlando area may have changed their mind on that. I'm not going to go into detail on that, but nevertheless, The Purge will return, and it will return into the New York scare zone. I'm kind of indifferent to The Purge. I'm not a fan of the first film. I like the second film. I recently saw Election Year. Election Year is fucking terrible. It's a horrible movie. Almost on par with the first film. I can't stand the first Purge. Like I said, I like the second one. Not such a huge fan of Election Year. But that being said, The Purge actually lends itself to quite a good scare zone. It is easy. It's generic. There's not a whole lot that you really need to do in terms of high concept or these grand ideas. It's a simple concept. People are familiar with the name. And it works, especially works in the New York area, which is where this is going to go. The blog mentioned that we will have the auction back. The auction was a good addition to the scare zone the first time. Even though out in Hollywood they may have gotten into some trouble with the auction. Everyone enjoyed the auction. It's a good addition. But they're also trying to do something a little bit different here with The Purge, which is bringing in this concept of this cleaning crew, like how does, how do all these bodies get cleaned up during the purge? I think that's kind of a cool idea. I hope that we don't lose, because the thing with the auction, you had the first time around, you had the bread truck roam around with the driver sort of finding victims to go bring to the auction. I liked that aspect of the sort of interactivity aspect of the scare zone, and I hope they bring that back. And I hope the box truck doesn't get pigeonholed into this cleanup crew. Nevertheless, I like both ideas coming. So I'm not adverse to both ideas coming. Whether it's the systematic rounding up of victims, or whether it's the systematic cleaning up of victims, I like both concepts. But I just hope that both are on its own level. I hope that we still have the rounding up of victims, and I hope that we still have the cleaning up of the victims from, with other things, not just the box truck, but other things, maybe motorcycles. I don't know. But yeah, so not totally against the purge, but it's the purge. We've seen it before. It is what it is. But it's an easy scare zone. It's an easy thing to do. And it's basically going to ride that name, boy. They're going to ride that name. And Blumhouse has a bigger hand this year. So it doesn't surprise me that the purge is back. So we got the purge. Purge is coming back in New York. Next one I want to talk about is the Festival of the Deadliest. Now, I heard about this a long time ago. This will be, if I was a betting man, there's already been some hints about that on social media. This is where the whole Soul Collectors theme for the year is going to sort of tie in this Festival of the Deadliest. We had Esqueleto Muerte. Kind of seems like that a little bit, but with more horror elements as opposed to a straight up sort of Day of the Dead vibe to it. It's a party with with these creatures walking around, and there's talk about us being like moths to a flame to go down to the this is in Hollywood Boulevard, so you go down to Hollywood Boulevard, you're sort of encompassed in all this stuff, and based on what little things that I've read and little things that I've heard, this is kind of going to be where the Soul Collectors idea is going to converge for this year. The Soul Collectors idea is sort of going to be all encompassing this year, but not front and center, not like an icon, not like not too in depth. It's going to be there, but it's not going to be there. And this is where you're probably going to get the most of the Soul Collectors idea. Universal released a short video that had some behind the scenes stuff, such as elevation drawings and some concept art for what to expect in this scare zone. It actually looks kind of cool. I would expect the logo sort of to play again, going into that whole Soul Collectors idea, the whole Soul Collectors vibe being in the scare zone. The logo with the skull and the candles on the side. I think this is where this is all going to be. So you're going to see all that tie into this scare zone. Not necessarily an overall encompassing theme, but this is where that will be represented, which I kind of dig. I'm not big on this scare zone because I just don't know that much about it. We don't know that much about it. All we know is that it's going to be in Hollywood. It's going to have this. It's going to have that. But we don't know that much about it outside of that. So there's a lot of real estate in Hollywood. So it could be something great. It could be basically Van 55 from last year, where there's not a whole lot in there. Nevertheless, I am looking forward to it, but just not overly thrilled. We'll put it to you that way. Next up, I want to talk a little bit about Trick or Treat, because this is going to be where I'm going to spend the most time on. Trick or Treat's going to be located in the Central Park area of Universal Orlando. Now, my hatred towards Krampus is not lost on people. I was not a fan of Krampus, the movie. I was not a fan of it coming to the event last year. I'm just not a fan of Krampus. Michael Dougherty, who directed Krampus, wrote and directed Krampus, also wrote and directed a little film a couple years ago. It's called Trick or Treat. Now, Trick or Treat has kind of gotten this sort of cult-like status, this underground fan base status. It's not a bad movie, but I don't see the appeal to Trick or Treat. The character of Sam is cool. I like that little character. But overall, I'm just not a fan of Trick or Treat. I get it. I get why people like it. Anthology thing, like, I get it. But really, the only reason that drew me to Trick or Treat in the first place was because Anna Paquin was in it. And her sort of story in that anthology I thought was kind of cool and kind of weird and different, and something that I wasn't expecting. It's an okay movie. It works for a scare zone. I'm not saying it doesn't work for a scare zone. It especially works for a scare zone over in Central Park. But I just don't get the appeal. I don't get the appeal. I don't get the appeal of Trick or Treat. I don't get the appeal of Krampus. And Dirty is not doing the Godzilla sequel, so we will see see how that turns out. But now Dirty's been around a long time. He's written a lot of films. He's worked with Bryan Singer a lot in his career. I have nothing against Dirty, but I just don't like his. I don't like his films. Trick or Treat really didn't hit my bone, and neither did Krampus. Less so. I was not a fan of Krampus. I can deal with Trick or Treat, but Krampus I was just not a fan of. It's good for him though, because he got the Krampus thing going, and I'm sure that he may have wanted a house. But they said, well, it works better in a scare zone, which it kind of does. The whole Trick or Treat vibe really kind of works in a scare zone. You can't really do, it just turns into Halloween at that point, or some other kind of, slasher sort of centric horror film. So it does work for a scare zone. Of course, the pumpkins are back. The pumpkins were being placed a couple days ago. We have all the pumpkins in the trees again. We love the pumpkins. Everyone loves the pumpkins. Today they added some like building elements and some decorations, and it looks like it's going to be a good scare zone. But once again, just like I said last year and the year before, scare zones in Central Park these days are kind of not good, especially when you put something, an IP like this, which over the course of the last couple of years has gotten a much bigger reputation. People are aware of Sam, the icon character from the film. This, you have the show there. Central Park tends to get crowded very, very quickly. Last year was horrible over in Central Park. I mean, there was such a cluster, and that was a trend in two very high-profile scare zones last year, Banshee's Lair and Dead Man's Wharf. The spaces are just so tight, and when you have hordes of people trying to get through those, especially over in Central Park, all these people leaving the show and going towards the show, and then you have the scares on top of that, just doesn't work very well, for a scare zone. So, I mean, that scares me more than the fact that it's Trick or Treat, the fact that it is in Central Park. And Central Park is always very atmospheric. It is what it is. It just lends itself to that. So, again, Trick or Treat it's a natural fit over there. It works for a scare zone. I have no problems with Trick or Treat. I'm just not a fan of the property as much as some people are. Just not a fan of Trick or Treat as much as other people. So, I'll leave it to you there. But I'm more concerned about the bottleneck that happens over in Central Park these days because of the show. And with something like this, it is an IP property. This isn't something that's just kind of... So there's going to be a lot of people hanging out in there looking for Sam and looking for, all the characters of the film, especially Sam. There's going to be people in there. There's going to be a lot of people in there. So that kind of worries me a little bit. But we're going to move on from Trick or Treat. And we're going to go to the Altars of Horror. Altars of Horror will be located in the Plaza of the Stars area, where Chance of Scare Zone was last year. Production Central. Some people have different, it's called different things these days. But Production Central, Plaza of the Stars, Avenue of the Stars. I don't care about the scare zone. This is probably my least anticipated scare zone for this year. I don't care about even when I heard about it a couple months ago, I just don't give a shit. I don't understand this concept. Now, there's nothing wrong with it. I've heard some people complain about, if we're doing like big characters from some of the IP houses and bringing them out into the streets, it makes the people in the houses, be a little bit less special. Who cares about that shit? My problem with the scare zone is just bringing the characters in from the houses that are already there. There's two sides to this. If they were to do, let's say, like what Hollywood has out this year, the Titans of Terror, right? So this, in a way, it's sort of the same thing, but just not with the Titans of Terror, not with Freddy, Jason, Leatherface, Chucky, those guys. It's with the bigger characters that are in the IP houses this year. Cool. But that to me is boring. If you were going to do something like this, bring in those characters. Bring in the Freddy, Jason, Leatherface, those guys. The actual Altars of Horror characters. I saw no mention of that in the blog or when they were talking about this. So it's going to be strictly some of the bigger characters from the houses this year. What characters? I would assume we'll probably see Jack Torrance, maybe the twins from The Shining, maybe Billy, Billy or Jigsaw or the Pig guys. That's the type of thing that you're going to see in this scare zone. And that to me just does not interest me. I think we're looking at another giant photo op scare zone up at the front. People like photos. They like photos with their characters. I love photos. But that to me is just boring. I have no interest in the scare zone whatsoever. So we're going to move on. Probably my most anticipated scare zone this year is Invasion. I've been hearing about this scare zone for a long fucking time. And it's changed a little bit since their initial concept. But they're kind of taking, I guess, the campiness of what made Vamp 55 popular last year. And putting it into a sci-fi sort of scare zone. Even the logo, the Invasion logo, is very reminiscent of Creatures, which was back in 2008. This sort of, campy B-movie sci-fi type thing. That excites me. I like the idea of seeing a spaceship over there, the aliens coming out, for both world domination and sort of enslaving the human race and experimenting on the human race. That excites me a lot. I love this concept. A problem, same thing with Dead Man's Wharf. It was just a cluster back there because of the giant ship coming in and the construction that was for Disaster last year. They had the black things over there. They had all the stuff on the side too, so there wasn't a whole lot of, you had to maneuver around the plants and shit to get around if you wanted to get out of the flow of traffic. They need to do something better over in that area to let people walk freely, to not clog that area with people coming and going. And don't yell at me when I stop to take photos of shit, because that happened last year. Even though we were well out of the way of people, we were not in a traffic area, we were off to the side, we were being told that we needed to move out of the scare zone, which to me, again, if you're going to have a scare zone up at the front that's basically nothing but a photo op, with last year with Chance, for example, this year with Ultras of Horror, don't tell me to get out of the fucking scare zone. I'm going to stay there. If I want to take pictures, I'm going to take pictures. I don't take pictures with scare actors. I like to take pictures of the props and the decorations and lighting and things of that nature. But if we're out of the way, we're not bothering anybody, and we're, out of the flow of traffic, don't tell me to fucking move on. I hate that shit. But nevertheless, I love the concept of the scare zone, so I am very much looking forward to this. Like I said, I've been hearing about this for a long fucking time. This concept is nothing new either. This has been a concept that they've sort of toyed with behind the scenes for a while. So I've been hearing about this for a long time, and I'm glad to finally see it happen. I want to see this scare zone happen, regardless of where it is. So this is my most anticipated scare zone of the year. So lastly, they also mentioned the roaming hordes. The roaming hordes will return as they have over the past couple years, but they sort of gave them a little bit of a storyline this year, which I thought was kind of interesting. This sort of, they're upset about clowns being made to be these horrible demons and stuff. I thought that was very interesting. But it's roaming hordes. It's going to be the same thing that we've had for the last couple of years. Clowns obviously, and who knows, maybe some scarecrows in there. They didn't really specify how many roaming hordes. I know last year we had 4 total, 3 or 4 total. We had the redneck chainsaws in Springfield. We had the geisha chainsaws over on the other side of Transformers. And we also had the Scarecrow guy, so 3, right? 3 total, I think, were last year. So they didn't really specify if they were going to have different ones in different places. They just sort of harped on this clown thing. The clowns are angry because the clowns have been, made out to be bad guys. Nobody likes clowns. The clowns. It's a universal. Again, it's like the Purge. It's such a universal thing. People hate clowns. People are scared of clowns. It is what it is. But yeah. So I think I covered everything about what I wanted to cover. We had the scare zones, touched a little bit upon the closure of Bill and Ted, and we have Academy Villains coming back. We're less than a month away, people. So this is gonna be a thing now. We're gonna be coming. Everything's gonna be flowing at this point. Everything looks like it's going smoothly at this point. There's no hiccups, no big hiccups, I should say. So we are coming to the point. I'll get more into detail about all this stuff when I do the Chatcast once everything is all revealed. I was going to do one once more stuff got revealed, but I think at this point I'm just going to wait until we get the full reveal for everything, and then I'll do a chatcast, and then I'll get into more and more detail about what I think about the show. I'll rank all my anticipated stuff. I will, rank the houses, rank the scare zones, talk a little bit more in detail about Bill and Ted, which, by the way, if you want to hear my thoughts or read my thoughts, go to my blog, because all my stuff that I will talk about is in that blog. So I made my thoughts clear about Bill and Ted, I think. But yeah, so I'll get into more detail about all that stuff once we get to the chatcast. So that is it. That is it, guys. Scare Zones revealed today and Academy Villains. It is what it is. But anyway, I'll talk to you guys later.